Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's lecture on the representation of crime in media, moral panic, and mass media theory, part of our deviant behavior, Sociology 245. I am Dr. Dilsora Fozilova, and this is our second week's second class. Today's class, we are going to focus on two things: media and crime. The media plays a significant role in shaping our perceptions of crime and deviance. However, the representation of crime in media is often misleading, exaggerated, or distorted, leading to moral panic and misguided public opinion. In this lecture, we will explore how mass media theory helps us understand the complex relationship between media, representation, public perception, and the construction of deviance. We will examine how media outlets select, frame, and present crime stories, influence our understanding of criminal behavior and the criminal justice system. In today's class, we will also discuss the concept of moral panic, how it emerges, and its consequences, including the demonization of certain groups and perpetuation of stereotypes. Through the lens of mass media theory, we will analyze the ways in which media representation of crime reinforces dominant ideologies, perpetuates social control, and shapes public opinion or public policy even. By critically examining the representation of crime in media, we aim to uncover the underlying power dynamics, biases, and interests that shape our understanding of deviance and inform our responses to it. By the end of this lecture, I hope you will be able to critically evaluate the representation of crime in media and understand the concept of moral panic and the concept of mass media theories. And also, I hope you will be able to apply mass media theory to analyze construction of deviance. You will be able to identify power dynamics and biases that shape media representation of crime. And with that in mind, let's start our class. I am going to share with you my PowerPoint. So in today's class, we will be focusing on crime in media studies, which looks at crime and representation of crime in media and that's effects to society. We will talk about panic, moral panic, and also we will talk about mass media theory. Also, one of the interesting things about this course is I like to talk about how introduction of different forms of media increased moral panic in society. For example, how society or people felt when first time TV was introduced or certain kinds of forms of media was introduced. Let's start with thinking about what is really media. There is two different stages. We call media differently. One of them is old media and a new media. There is actually one big main distinction between old media and new media. So what is that? So old media, when we think about old media, we think we think about TVs, we think about radios, magazines, journals, those that, influence of media is one way that you will watch TV, you will listen to radio, you will read articles in journals or magazines, and you will be affected by it, but you cannot affect anything or anybody through media. So that is just kind of like a one-way media. New media is a little bit different. It is more internet based, that um, people can also have influence through this media. It is just kind of like a interactive media. Introduction of social media changed the ways media was viewed before, or how it was affecting society. Now, if there is a story about something, we can write comments, we can respond to it, we can write about our feelings about what they are talking, or we can react to certain stories or anything, media representations, through social media, Facebook, or Twitter, or some other types of social media. So then, what is the link between media and culture? Do cultures organize around communication, or communication is organized around cultures? So what is culture? Culture is the representation of certain groups that kind of historically developed their own way of living, and it includes material culture, it includes non-material culture, that's music and that's songs. And material culture is, for example, their clothes, the way they lived, the way they built their houses, the way they do stuff. That is material culture. So how material and non-material culture represented in media, and how that affects media representation of certain cultures. What is network society? Society of spectacle and the image. So network society is everyone around us we are connected with. How does media shape our identities? In today's world, where social media is one of the most influential parts of our lives, our identity is certainly affected by different forms of media. Also, we can think about media capitalism. What is media capitalism? In today's world, everything in social media is affecting our choices. Kind of, they're pushing us towards doing certain things, or helping us make decisions about what we're going to buy, what is our favorite types of homes and cars, or clothes, or anything you can think of. So in some ways, media is influencing our taste, our decision making, our world views. So it plays a significant role in social life. So while we are going through this lecture, and while you're also reading your weekly readings, you might want to reflect on these questions. Why do humans exhibit a strong fascination with crime and deviance? And how does the media capitalize on this fascination on its coverage of criminal events? We are already fascinated by crime and deviance, and media is helping to amplify this fascination, right? So how this coverage of criminal events affect us? In what ways does the media's preoccupation with crime and deviance potentially contribute to societal perceptions of insecurity, fear, and mistrust? What role can media literacy and critical thinking play in mitigating the potential negative effects of media representations of crime and deviance on individuals and society? These are very interesting questions. You might want to take on some of them in your annotative bibliography. So let's start with representation of crime. What is representation of crime? Representation of crime in various forms of media, including, you can think of any kind of media that is talking about crime. Actually, it can be news, it can be entertainment, that movies, or it can be literature, that crime, books. There is a lot of books that talk about crime, right? And it can be art, how crime is displayed in paints. It can be anything that you documentary that traces certain forms of crime, or it can be any kind of media that plays a significant role in shaping public perceptions, attitudes, and our understanding of what really criminal behavior is and how this criminal justice system works. Sometimes when we watch movies or documentaries or those stuff, our understanding of criminal justice system is totally different. It's exaggerated, it's just misleading. In actuality, criminal justice system may work totally different. So one of the main forms of media is news media. News media is one of the things just come out first. It's a most immediate and visible representation of what is going on in society. Either it's a crime or any kind of news. News media spread the word first. Crime stories are frequently sensationalized, focusing on dramatic or violent incidents that capture attention. So we live in this attention economy. Just getting people's attention is one of the main focuses of news media. So when they are spreading media or just representing news, they focus on the most dramatic side of what is going on. If there is one, let's say 15 seconds of something very dramatic, they capture that time, and that's the part is in newspaper, or that's the part is on TV or in social media. So by doing so, they're exaggerating the scenes of crime. Like in social media, you take pictures or videos of the best few seconds of your life, and you put that on your profile, and you keep doing that. The people who watch your profile all the time, they think like your life is perfect. There is no flaw in your representation of your profile, right? Representation of yourself. Crime is just like that, but it's other way around. The journalists or people who represent news on media, they just take the most dramatic side of news, and then that is spread in society. They focus on the first certain types of crimes and effectiveness of law enforcement, how things are played, and if they are getting public opinion, for example, they capture the most dramatic one. Another one of the very influential and well observed media is entertainment media. There is endless movies that represent crime. Those are all entertainment media. People are fascinated by crime scenes in these movies. It has long been a popular theme in literature. It has been the most popular in movies, films, television, in other forms of entertainment, from detective novels to police procedures. And there's all, like, some of them I can think of, like Blue. What was the name of that documentary or show going on, that Blue Blood or something, that's about the um, police, how that they how they fight against crime and how they help people, the most dramatic scenes there. That kind of thing is like too many out there. So they focus on this crime dramas and true crime documentaries. Entertainment media often romanticizes and sensationalizes criminal behavior for dramatic effect. That if it's very dramatic, if that captures people's attention, that those movies are probably most successful ones. While some works may strive for realism, that they try to do their best to bring out the reality about crime and what's going on in society, most of the time they may perpetuate stereotypes or glamorize violence and glamorize police work, how they capture it. It's fascinating. Everybody is interested with that, and everybody is wanting to see this heroic representation of police or certain people, right? Sometimes police or the heroes, the other times not the police, but that guy who wanted to bring out some justice is the hero. So there is two sides in this kind of stories. Another one is literature. Literature has been one of the oldest media forms of media. Criminality was always one of the most interesting topics in literature and art. You can see here the book by Fyodor Dostoevsky that called Crime and Punishment, that talks about crime and punishment, how that is, you know, the, this older books are kind of traces of how crime is represented in literature and art. It has been recurring themes in literature and art throughout history, reflecting societal anxieties, moral dilemmas, and power dynamics. So these feelings of anxiety, fear, or criminality always existed. So whatever is in society, it reflects on literature and art, right? From classic works like Dostoevsky's Crime and Punishment to contemporary novelist poetry, visual art, or representation of any kind of other crimes, offer insights into human nature, social justice, and the complexities of law and morality. Sometimes there is a complex relationship between what is really moral and what is really immoral in this kind of literature. Um, by the introduction of social media, which we called already new media, that representation of crime reached reached its new heights. Why? Because now people can interact with media, they can produce their own content, and also they can be ones that represent crime. For example, if a crime happening in society, it's not the journalist or somebody works in the news media who can catch that scene, but people who are witnessing them. So they are the ones who are generating content, and then spreading the word in social media, for example. And there is different types of representation of crime in social media. It just viral videos, for example, came to light because of this social media. I watch certain things in Uzbekistan, for example, if there is certain wrongdoing is going on in society, in the political spheres or legal spheres, people are videoing them and making it available for other people to watch. So there's nothing that can be secret anymore, that actual crimes are out there by first-hand accounts or perspectives on crime incidents, sometimes shaping public discourse and perceptions in a way traditional media could not do or cannot do. Traditional media was certainly, for example, news media. If they are getting to the news, what was happening in society, in certain communities, they are the ones that arrive there probably after everything happens. Maybe they can interview people, they talk about that and try to uncover what is going on there. But people who are already there, they can just take your phone and take that actual videos and spread them before the news media. In some way, that news media became on the hands of actual people like you and I, and then there is more reality, or a representation of crime became more real than the professionals who are highlighting the most dramatic part of crime in media. So the representation of crime is deeply influenced by cultural norms. In the first slide, we talked about what influences what. Culture influences media, or media influences culture, right? So representation of crime is deeply influenced by cultural norms, values, and historical contexts. Different societies and cultures may have distinct approaches to portraying crime and criminal behavior, reflecting their own unique perspectives on justice, morality, and human nature. For example, if there is a traditional society, perhaps the certain measures or certain norms we could just accept as a norm could be deviant behavior. As you and I know that deviance is basically depends on how we view the social norm. If social norm is, let's say, dark hair, having red hair is a deviance, right? So if social norm is walking with shorts in society, so deviance can be wearing long dress like that, just touching the ground. And in some societies, it can be other way around. So people wear long dresses, and wearing shorts can be deviating from societal norms. When it comes to crime and criminal behavior or deviant behavior, it is the same thing. How cultural norms shape will also manufacture or shape the way deviant behavior is viewed in society. Because of that, representation of crime or deviance is different from one culture to another. So the representation of crime and deviance then in media or social media can have significant impact for people's perceptions and attitudes and policy responses. Misrepresentations or misrepresentations or misleading depictions of crime may contribute to fear, stigmatization, and punitive attitudes towards certain groups and communities. On the other hand, accurate and balanced representation of crime can foster understanding, empathy, and constructive dialogue about the root causes of crime and effective strategies to prevention and intervention. So, how crime and deviance is represented in media really helps us or makes it harder to fight with crime and finding strategies to intervene. So, what is mass media? Now, this is one of the most important parts of our lecture. So, we need to understand what is mass media to understand how crime is represented in there. What is mass media theory? Mass media theory is not one thing. So it is the collection of many perspectives that all together helps us understand the realities behind representation of crime or representation of anything on media. It is a framework that seeks to understand the role, influence, and effect of mass media on society, culture, and people. Mass media theory was developed in the early 20th century, and it posits that mass media have a powerful and potentially negative influence on society. It can lead to the homogenization of culture, erosion of traditional values, and manipulation of public opinion by dominant groups. So let's think about a few sociological theories that represent that analyze representation of crime in mass media. That is going to be also part of mass society theory. So conflict theory, for example, introduced by Karl Marx, and that talks about societal inequalities, class differences, how some groups control and manipulate other groups, and it's about the class inequality. It's about dominant ideologies. When we analyze mass media through conflict theory, we can think of who are the ones who are creating media representation of certain things, who are represented in that media, who are gatekeepers of these media representations in society. So whoever has more voice in society, they are the ones represented more. So if the dominant groups are the ones who are creating this media and representing their own side, some people might feel that they are silenced in society or their voices are not heard by political groups or dominant groups in society. So conflict theory looks at the sides of media representation in society. The other one is structural functionalism. So as you know, structural functionalism views everything in society as part of the structure, and it analyzes through the lens of functionalism. So if that exists, must have some kind of function in society. So if media exists in society, it plays a huge role in society. There is a response. There is a functions of media in society. So study how media images are responsible for eroding moral standards, subverting consensual codes of behavior, on corrupting young minds, is some of the things structural functionalists perhaps will take on or think about. For example, how entertainment media affects people in society, and how we can analyze media as an agent of socialization. What are the standardized views of society? What are the standards? Who are creating these standards? This kind of questions the structural functionalists will explore. Symbolic interactionalism, on the other hand, it's more micro level analysis. It looks into how media shapes our lives in day-to-day basis. Communities fragmented and traditional social ties are dismantled. Society became mass of isolated individuals. And what is the role of mass media in that? How we are connected through media. So, and then feminist theory. If we think about feminist theory, we can think of how women are represented in media. And there are stereotypes, there are conflict between race and gender, and representation of gender roles, representation of different sexes. And also there is a documentary called Killing Us Softly, that is about how standards of beauty created, or how woman's body are represented in social media or media, that everybody trying to be that idealized, trying to have that ideal shape of woman, which is unachievable. And there are beauty standards that, created by, let's say, today, in today's world, we are using in everyday life so many AI based apps, and that can create certain kind of images, and also photos are edited, right? So then what happens is this ideal shape of woman, ideal form of woman, ideal beauty is created in media, and then everybody tries to get there, and it creating that sad or depressed society because of that representation of woman. Feminist theory looks at that kind of stuff. Or even if we think about men's body, sometimes they are represented in ideal way. They are, masculinity, or how men's body is created, sometimes unachievable. By doing that, the using, for example, steroids and certain kind of proteins or certain things are encouraged. People are probably living in the fitness centers or whatever. So there is a huge influence by media towards both men and women in society. Feminist theory or critical theory analyzes this kind of representations in media. So, as we mentioned in the earlier, mass media theory is not a one theory. There's different kinds of theories that provides framework to view different things about media. For example, hypodermic needle model says that media messages or media images are directly injected into the minds of massive audiences, shaping their attitudes, beliefs, and behaviors in predictable ways. While this model was influential in early mass media research, it has been criticized for oversimplifying the complexity of media effects and ignoring audience agency and interpretation. So this theory basically says, like, whatever is put on TV or spread in society, that is directly affecting everybody, right? And then criticism says, not really, because people have agency. They can think for themselves. Not everybody is in the same level. Some people are better educated than another people. So it cannot be like a needle just, pinning in our minds and changing everything, changing the ways we think about society. We can also think, and we can say no to certain kinds of effects of media. So then there is another theory that called agenda setting theory. Well, I cannot go through all the theories in mass media. At least a few theories that kind of gives us idea about what mass media theory is. Agenda setting theory is basically that power, the media, mass media, have the power to influence the public agenda by determining which issues and topics are deemed important or salient. So, who decides what's important in society? So, dominant groups decide what is important. So, based on their idea of what is important, that is the kind of stuff represented in media. So that means public opinion is shaped by their understanding of what is good and what is bad, what's that kind of crime, or how these crimes are represented in society. While media may not tell people what to think, they can significantly influence their perceptions, right? And people think about by emphasizing certain issues over others. For example, if there is issues in, let's say, some marginalized groups, that is probably never sees the face of media. So nobody pays attention, nobody knows about it, nobody thinks about it, nobody tries to help them. But if something happens in other society, other communities, those are more close to dominant communities, that crime or issue can be widely represented in media, and that's finds its solution or resolved way faster than the people represented, marginalized people represented in media. Basically, by bringing certain hidden realities to media, some journalists help to provide voice or give voice to certain marginalized groups. So agenda setting theory basically then says that whose voices are represented in social media, that is kind of influences public agenda or influences policy making or influences that problems that find its solution. So that is agenda setting theory. So now I would like to talk about a little bit, before I talk about moral panic, crimes representation in social media and moral panic. I would like to talk about how introduction of certain forms of media was actually forms of moral panic. For example, in 1860s and 70s, there were small, very cheap magazines or journals that had kind of like a picture, what you call it, that in today's world, the children or even adults read a lot of this kind of books that is, one second. Sometimes I forget certain words. I was looking for a word called comic books. Comic books. So when first comic books came up, so there was a panic about them. So people thought this comic books, that representation of certain super magical stuff, like you can see over here, Superman and some magical thing is whatever. So that can be very bad for people. And there was article by John Hubbard in 1868 that said, there's a direct quote from it. It says, juvenile criminality largely attributable to the spread of cheap publication and theatrical representation of exciting and immoral character, which corrupt the children of the lower classes and stimulate them into courses of dishonesty and vice. So because these magazines or journals were very cheap, more kind of children of the lower classes were able to read them or buy them. So there is a panic about they becoming dishonest and wise. So that is panic in 1860s and 70s. And then there was radios in 1930s and 40s. There was panic about the radios in American Journal of Psychiatry in 1936. It says, there's a direct quote. It says, parents have become aware of puzzling change in the behavior pattern of their children. They cannot lock out this intruder because it has gained invincible hold on their children. So people are fascinated by radio, and that's creating panic in society. And then the phones came out, and there was a big moral panic about phones, that phones were viewed addiction for woman who stays home because they probably chat with their mother or mother-in-law way too much. And then there was a panic about phones. One of the articles in 1984 says, one of the most serious unreported disabling antisocial disease in America today is that of telephone addiction. Well, if they could only see what we go through, right? And this is us and our generation. We are panicking about social media and how everybody are addicted to their phones. And there is an article came out in 2017 that's name was How Smartphones Destroyed Generations. And there is another article in New York Post 2016. It said how screens turn kids into psychotic junkies. So there is all kinds of moral panic about new media machines or new phones. And you have this article by McRobbie and Thornton, Moral Panic for Multi-Mediated Social Worlds. I hope you have time to read that before you take your exam, because there will be some questions on this. What are the main arguments in McRobbie and Thornton's article? You may want to reflect before you take your exam. How does the public perception of criminal activity change as a result of moral panic? Moral panic is anti-intellectual and sometimes can backfire. That is the words coming from the article. What are the main purposes and goals behind creating moral panic? How does moral panic affect society? What are some of the positive and negative effects of moral panic? How moral panic is framed. So now we are going to talk about moral panic. Moral panic is a theory developed by a sociologist called Staley Cohen, that talks about the societal reflection to perceived threats or deviant behavior. Sometimes representation of certain crimes or deviant behavior can panic other people. The theory of moral panic was originally proposed by Stanley Cohen in his 1972 book called Folk Devils and Moral Panics. So what is theory of moral panic? Moral panic examines how certain issues, groups, or behaviors come to be defined and portrayed as a danger to social values and norms. Again, we are talking about social values and norms. And social panic can be different for different societies with different norms. Often it resulting in a heightened sense of fear, anxiety, and moral outrage within a society or specific community. I do remember recently there was a panic about bath salts that making people like zombies and people chewing one another or something like that. And when I discussed this in class, some of my students never heard that, and they were searching on their phone, and actually they found very fascinating articles published about bath salts. And we can also think about the toilet paper phenomena during the COVID-19. So that created such a panic in society that people were buying so many extra and extra and extra toilet paper, and nobody knows why. So certain things create panic in society, and people act certain way because of that. According to Cohen, moral panic occurs when a condition, event, or group is identified as a threat to societal interests and values. The media, public figures, and other influential actors play a crucial role in amplifying and disseminating this perception of threat. So there are a few stages of moral panic theory. So first, some news comes out, and that gets people's attention. When it gets people's attention, it is amplified in media and social media sometimes. And there is a construction of false devils that there's some danger is behind this, and that is very bad for society. It's against social norms, it's against morals, it's against everything. So there is a panic about that. Then there will be exaggeration and distortion of that news. So it gets viral. People are scared, people starts to react to it, people talk about that, and then there will be some expert or some let's say political authority or judicial authority, somebody will come out and talk about that, and there would be resolution. Either that will be solved or it will be lessened in few days and the intensity will disappear. So the moral panic is a short-lived, it has short-lived intensity. It does not stay as the time it comes out. Just the time when it comes out and constructed as something dangerous, when it's exaggerated and spread in society, those are the parts that are very heated about moral panic. It's something against our morals. And then there is a social reaction, and people are scared of that. Sometimes it's good, it leads to some policy change or resolution of certain things in society. Sometimes it just, after some times, people forget about that and move on with their lives. Anyway, it is a very short-lived intensity. So representation of crime then sometimes creates such a moral panic that sometimes is not helpful for society. It creates all different kinds of imagination and understanding and attitudes towards certain groups. It can create attitudes towards law enforcement and other people, understanding of crime. It affects society in huge ways. And when we think about moral panic and representation of crime, the important questions to think is the media representation of crime accurate? Does the media cause crime or cause crime, increase the fear of crime? I think I'm not understanding my own question. What roles does the media play in creating moral panics and designating folk devils? So this is our lecture for today. If you have any questions, please bring to our discussion group in Blackboard. I'll be very happy to help you with that. And in today's lecture, we talked about representation of crime in media. We talked about old media, new media, what has changed, what is mass media theory, which is a collection of many different theories. We also talked about moral panics and what they do in society, how we can increase our understanding of crime and how it affects us by being critical of how crime is created and represented in media. Thank you for your time, and I will talk to you, see you. I will be with you in our next lectures. Have a great day.